Okay, let's call the meeting to order, and the first order of business is to take roll call.
By them checking in, they've taken the roll. So roll call's accounted for. I think, yep, we can proceed.
I can't get it to pop up, Brian. Or when
The roll call is when everybody signs into the meeting, so I think we can go to the next item.
Okay, the next order of business is to approve the agenda as presented.
The group approves.
Second. Call the question.
Sorry, who was the second?
Wes.
Wes.
And as the question is being called, for those of you that are viewing at home or maybe tuning in, I wanted to share, and board members as well, that this meeting is a public meeting. We are broadcasting through our Bobcat network. This meeting is live. It is also being archived for future reference as a point of opportunity for public involvement. We do have somebody monitoring the school district webpage. On the school district webpage, there's a section that's called Ask the Superintendent a Question. If there is public comment that wishes to be acknowledged and shared during the course of this meeting, individuals at home viewing this meeting or listening can log on to the district webpage, tap that link, provide their input information, and then that information will be shared. Board members, I will bring that up so that everybody can hear if there is a public comment that is being presented. So we do have the opportunity to provide public comment. And I'll just close that by saying this is the first time doing this process. So certainly if there are challenges, we'll work through those, but that is our process that we are employing to ensure public opportunity for comment on the agenda.
Okay, with the permission of the board, I don't recall the section that indicated that there would be a communication within the board, but I will say to all of you and anybody else listening or interested that yesterday I had a procedure on my eyes at the hospital, and I can't see today, so if I seem extra disorganized, it's because I think I went through an experience similar to yours, Wes, and I don't have a magnifying glass, so it's a bit of a struggle. Although I did think about calling you up, Wes, and asking you to bring yours over. With that, I'll ask Deb to read the district's mission statement, please.
The mission statement of the Brookings School District is: the Brookings District prepares all learners to be confident, engaged citizens, empowered to impact the ever-changing and interconnected world.
Thank you.
It seems very appropriate today.
Do you have any reports of conflicts, Clint?
We do not have any conflicts to declare at this time.
All right. The next order of business, as I see it, is communication, discussion items, info regarding the COVID-19 remote learning update. I'll turn the podium over to you, Clint.
Yeah, certainly, and just in the essence of time, I do not want to belabor this too much, other than to provide our board, our community that's listening and connected, some updates on how things have gone and how things have proceeded since the last time our board met. As you may recall, the last time the board met, we laid out very succinctly what our plan of action was from all the various departments within the district. We had each of the directors provide a report and an update relative to each of the divisions or directors' charges within the district. And today I wanted just to provide a little more specificity around the core of our operation, which is teaching and learning. And attached to the board packet, just as a point of reference, you'll notice those components of our program, of our district, that most closely impact the teaching and learning operations of the district. And you'll see the curriculum and instruction report, a technology report, and then each of the buildings have provided some updates as well for reference. I think a few big takeaways that I would offer. First and foremost, and before I get into that, you'll notice that the format for virtually every report is to give you a synopsis of what has transpired this week, and then a plus delta, which is consistent with our continuous improvement efforts in the district. For those of you not familiar with that process, a plus, those things that are going well. Delta, not necessarily bad, but things that we might need to work on or tweak or somehow improve. So again, just as a frame of reference as you review these documents. So again, I'm just going to give some broad paintbrushes and takeaways, and then I'm going to read one comment specifically that I think is timely as we look at what's being shared and discussed. Big takeaway is we have successfully launched our remote and digital learning effort and platform across the district. Are there challenges that are interspersed throughout our rollout and our implementation of our plans? Certainly. Those are recognized in the deltas as you look at those board members. Some of those have been things that are within our sphere of control. Some of them, frankly, aren't. And I look at, for example, within the technology area, there's limitations on some of the data hotspots. We can control that to a point, but then we've had some remote troubleshooting. We've had requests of people asking us to change their home internet service provider. That is not within our realm and sphere of control. You'll notice through the school reports of each of the principals, they're singing praises about how well our teachers have implemented their requirements to move into this new and remote learning environment that we're experiencing. And there's just, again, on the Delta side of that, really finding the ways to connect with the parents on returning items or finding that exact and appropriate balance, because again, this is really magnified in many ways the individualization of our learners and how they approach what they do within their respective schools and the curriculum that is being delivered. As you look through the reports too, you'll see some questions that we're still going to have to resolve related to grading and grades and assessment of student work. We have not hung our hat as much on that as we are being committed to providing opportunities to students, maintaining an enthusiasm and love for learning, all the while continually connecting with parents and providing those opportunities for staff to collaborate with each other as well as parents as we provide the educational opportunities and experiences that we are. And that's where I want to take you to the last comment. And before I do so, throughout each of the reports, there are links that I would encourage you board members, if you haven't had a chance to, go look at some of those. The links will give you some specific examples of how our administrators and staff are interacting with students, providing information. There's even a couple of fun ones on there. For example, if you look at the Dakota Prairie page, they did a little video with all the staff collaborating to the Frozen 2 song, which many of our clients are familiar with. That's the new Disney movie that was just released on Disney Plus, apparently. And the theme song for that is Into the Unknown, and how appropriate that's the song that they did their little skit and musical to, because this is an unknown chartered territory for all of us. But I think in all of that, Dr. Lean in his report provided, I believe, something that really speaks to what we've been working on within the district for for a number of years here as we talk about our mission statement, as you referenced earlier, Deb. And his comment is this: I opine that it took nature to drive us into the 21st century of educational delivery. A little virus is now leading us to truly utilize our resources to allow students to become independent decision makers, make time inconsequential, and turn intellectual growth into a non-competitive, natural ally of peace of mind in reaching potential. We are redefining success as the simple formula of doing your best with what you have. Let's not return to normal. This, and I'm going to add a word, this new normal is too important of a reformative change, finally. And I think it speaks to the way that our staff have approached this. I would argue the way that our community has approached this, because as I've been in the monitoring the different feedback pieces that I've looked at, I have continually heard from our community members how much they've appreciated the connections that our staff have made, utilizing the technology tools that we have, and doing so in a very thoughtful, intentional, and planful way. And the last thing I wanted to share as I share that is I have received a number of very positive comments, as have other administrators. The time that was afforded staff, that week that was afforded of really preparing. And if you watched my Monday memo last week, you noticed I pulled out an Abraham Lincoln quote that talked about having time to chop down a tree, 6 hours to chop down a tree, spend the first hour sharpening the axe. And I really believe that's what our staff did that week and continue to do as we keep moving forward for what is still an I would argue, an undetermined amount of time that we're going to have to continue on this pathway and this trajectory. So don't expect or anticipate you're going to see a report like this every week. We just wanted to give the board assurances, as well as our community, that we are moving forward as we had discussed when we gave the direct reports to the board, and detailing how those things are moving forward. And also just to reassert that we aren't resting on our laurels, that as those deltas are identified, we are problem solving those, finding ways to make improvements, and of course making the adjustments as we go along the way. So I just wanted to provide that update tonight. The last thing that I wanted to share that's not attached to this report, and frankly it's something that minutes before the board meeting I received, and it was some clarification, because there is a new piece of legislation from the federal level that actually came out towards the last week of March. And we know that we're just closing out the last week of March here, so right at the end of March, that took effect April 1st. And there was a lot of consternation and wondering if the passage of the Family First Coronavirus Act would actually apply to school districts, and to what extent. At 2:39, we received an email that said the Council of School Attorneys in South Dakota have come together, and as they did, they reviewed what the law says, and the general consensus of the Council of School Attorneys is that schools, that the school districts are needing to be compliant with this. So we have some work to do to dig into all of the nuances of it. Brian and Laura have already started that, because it does talk about leave of absences, paid sick leave, expanded family medical leave. So just, I wanted to give the assurances that we're working through that. And again, we're continuing to monitor those interpretations that exist, because there are some rather vague and nebulous pieces of language within that, and we just want to make certain that we're following all the regulations and rules that we're required to, particularly now under this Family First Coronavirus Act. So I'll stop there, and if there's any questions, I can certainly answer those. Otherwise, we can certainly move on to the items that we do have for action this evening.
Okay, Clint, well, thank you very much. I'm sure that each of the board members would like to spend at least as much time as you just have expressing appreciation to everybody for getting us ramped up like this. But having said that, is there anything that Roger, Wes, Melissa, Deb, you want to say with regard to this report?
I just want to say, echo what you said, Van.
Yeah, it's truly humbling. Anything else, folks?
Can I add?
No, just
Okay. Excuse me?
This is Melissa. I just had a question. I didn't know. I see it noted in the middle school report. I didn't know if there was any other direction or thoughts around grading that we're, in a place where we could provide more information on. I know that SDSU is talking about changing their grading potentially as well. So I didn't know if there's any other information that we could provide at this point, or if we're still working through that.
That's a great question, Melissa, and I'll take about 2 minutes to answer that. We're still working on
Dr.
it.
Willard, could you just get a little closer to the phone? There's kind of echoing. Maybe it's my phone or...
Okay, can you hear me now, Wes? Is that a little better?
You're better. Yeah.
Okay.
But much better.
Okay, so what we are looking at are some potential challenges or needs that we have to address specific to our high school students when we talk about grading. And that gets into some of the requirements of the NCAA requirements that if we have students that are pursuing something through a sanctioned NCAA activity, there's some pretty stringent requirements that exist currently, but I think those may be modified. So that's the only piece that we're monitoring because, again, I would argue that K-5, as we've moved more to standards-based grading and reporting, that is not as dependent upon the letter grade, but we know that when we move beyond that in our system, that does become a more important or relevant factor. So once we have some of those details ironed out, we can give a little more specific direction, but that's where we're at today.
Excuse me, Wes, I think possibly I caused some of that trouble because I took myself off mute to make those comments. So just as a friendly reminder, here it comes, I get feedback, but as a friendly reminder, everybody go on to mute as often as you can. I will close this part of the meeting by offering just a couple comments, Clint. Number one, as far as I was concerned, you went 2 for 2. I very much appreciated Kevin Lean's comments, and I hope that's an observation and comment and suggestion that stays with us, because I think it was very thoughtful and very useful. Number 2, with all due respect to the teachers at Dakota Prairie, I would suggest that most, if not all of them, keep their day job. I enjoyed it. It was great fun. I'm glad they did it, but I don't think we've got to make way in Broadway for any of them. And finally, just one piece of our commitment as a school district. Is there anything that you want to, any color you want to add to how the week for special ed went?
Again, I'll keep it brief. We've worked very closely with the State Department of Education, and we are in compliance with the requirements. The feedback that we've received has been positive. We know that as we continue down the pathway with special education, particularly when we know IEPs are going to come up, and there's a host of different individuals that participate in those individual educational planning meetings, there's going to have to be some real intelligent work done to ensure assessment procedures are done. But what we're hearing is that many of those deadlines or dates may be kind of waived or not held to quite the same standard that they otherwise would. But again, uncertain on how long this will last, that's something that we're communicating very regularly with the State Department of Education on to ensure that we are compliant, number one, but also, and just as importantly, number two, providing the educational opportunity that our students with special needs, not only special education, but also 504 students have and the requirements that are laid out in those individual plans for both special education as well as 504.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to move us into the discussion about the purchase of middle school equipment. Clint?
Hey, Van, can I just add 2 more COVID-related comments, very brief?
You certainly may.
All right.
You certainly may.
Yesterday, we had a construction meeting at 10:30 for the middle school track project, and Melissa and Wes were able to sit on that conference call as well as the 2 principals at the middle school and Randy Soma. And one of the items that was addressed was when they could actually start the track project. Well, after a kind of a lengthy discussion, we came up with the idea, and by we, I mean the principals, the 2 board members, myself and Randy Soma, that why not have them start the track as soon as they can, say, for example, within a week or 2. It would move up the project by quite a bit, the completion date. We're believing it should be done sometime in August, whereas they were thinking with the 30-day cure time, et cetera, it might not be done until September. So it seems like a win-win situation, and the recommendation from everyone on that conference call yesterday was to proceed with the track project as soon as possible. Wes or Melissa, do you guys want to add anything?
I agree. I supported the idea. I think there was some concern without having any knowledge of exactly how the timeline will change or get pushed back. But my thoughts were that everything that's coming out of the governor's office right now is indicating that our peak is moving out to be later and later in the year. So that May timeline to me is questionable, and it sounded like Randy Soma had some additional contingency plan options if we did end up going, returning to school. And so in the meantime, I felt very comfortable with moving forward and seeing if there are options that we could expedite this and move it up ahead in the schedule. So.
And I would add, this is Wes, I would add that the resources are there regarding the funding of the project, so it is a matter of the project funding timing, so.
And Melissa,
Okay,
you're
Brian.
right. I listened to the governor today, and she says now the peak is going to be mid-June.
That's right. She's suggesting the peak will now be into June, and so that tells me that it's a little bit less risky of a decision to support this, and it has quite an effect in moving things up in the schedule.
So, Brian, what's the authority that we as a board need to give you or give somebody to proceed pursuant to the recommendation of Wes and Melissa?
The authority, we believe, would come from the architect, where they just issue a new date, a new start date in the form of, I'm not sure what the wording is, but Phil mentioned it yesterday, but he'll be sending out a revised start date, and that's the effective change. And so I don't believe there's any action on the part of the board or the district until we get that form, and we'll just sign off on it that it's okay to start earlier.
Okay, well, it seems pretty clear to me that Melissa and Wes are comfortable with it. I'll just ask if there is any comment from you, Deb, or from you, Roger, regarding the suggestion.
It's a great idea.
All right, I think you have it then, Brian. That's item 1. What's item 2?
All right, thank you. And then just the last thing, with the COVID, we've been receiving several emails from Wellmark that they're making changes to their fully insured plan. And because we're self-insured, we'd have to opt into their changes. And one of the things we've been doing as a district, any change that Wellmark makes related to COVID, we opt in as well. And the last one that just came out is offering the fully insured members that they'll have no cost share, co-pays, co-insurance, or deductible related to appropriate treatment for COVID-19 when seeking care from an in-network PPO provider. and it's effective February 4th through at least June 16th, 2020. And we'll, again, send that back as well as, and say we want to opt into that as well, so we're current with what Wellmark's doing, plus it benefits our staff as well. Thank you for letting me add those two things.
To be clear then, Brian, that is something that has been attended to by our insurance committee on the board?
With this, the insurance committee mainly meets to talk about the premiums and any changes to it. These were just Dr. Willert, myself, and Patty, Kathy, and Laura Garrett's in our office. We just send an email out, and most of us concur, we're accepted in the changes, and we just opt in.
Well, it would have occurred to me that that this would be something that could be passed by the insurance committee also. But let me just pass over that observation and give to each of you, starting with you to my immediate right, Deb. What you think about this?
I agree. I think we should opt in and follow the guidelines of Wellmark.
All right, Wes?
Yeah, I concur.
Melissa?
Agreed.
Roger?
I agree.
Okay. I think you've got the support that you want, which, of course, would be my position also, although I think some thought should be given to what items should and should not go to the insurance committee, just as a courtesy to them going forward.
Right. And you know what, Van, I'll start that process. It didn't even occur to me to do that. I just wanted to get it sent back as fast as possible to ensure it was implemented with Wellmark. But if there's not a time-sensitive date on it and it's not fairly soon, I will forward it on to the insurance committee. So thank you.
But Brian, these are not normal times. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that going forward, let's consider this. I'm not unhappy about this.
All right, no, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, now, Clint, are you interested in proceeding with the lease proposal?
Yeah, we can move on to these are action items, and board members, there's some rationale before we get into these regarding the timeliness of putting these before you this evening. The primary focus of our meeting certainly was to give those updates on what has transpired. Again, we commit to communication, we commit to transparency, we commit to informing our public of how things are moving forward. There are some timely action items, and the computer lease is one of them. So if we want to move into that, we certainly can. And once we have a motion and a second, I suppose we can then enter into the discussion and get into some of the specifics. And Jason Schmidt, our Director of Technology and Knowledge Management, is here this evening and can give some additional insights on the application process of what's before you, as well as highlight some of the timeliness of it. Brian then can also talk specifically about the parameters financially, how it fits with our overall budget within our capital outlay plan, and how this fits in terms of the lease structure. So I'll defer till after we have a motion and a second to discuss that even further.
I move that we authorize the administration to purchase one-to-one computers for Mickelson Middle School.
I second that.
Okay, go to it, Clint.
Well, again, the timeliness of this is really driven by the environment that we're in. Jason, and I would certainly invite Jason to come from behind his screen that he works behind as he does the work that he does to broadcast our technology, or to broadcast our school board meetings. But he's been in communication with the representatives from Lenovo, and they've articulated that there is an increasing and ever-increasing shortage of devices, particularly laptops, because of this big thrust of work at home and transitioning to online learning platforms. So he can speak about that and then talk about how this fits within the technology plan that the board had reviewed, and approved recently. And then I think Brian can take the baton and talk about how this fits within our capital outlay budget and the terms of the lease. So,
Thank you, Clint, and good afternoon, board members and everybody watching at home. What we really did with this was something that probably was going to come up in the mid-April meeting, but due to the situations that have arisen, we pushed this up a little bit because of some of the shortages that are going on across the nation with everybody that's working from home, businesses, education. We've seen a major shortage of laptops. And so this is kind of just to make sure for the next school year that we have what we need and we're ready to go. So what's in front of you this evening is some different options for lease options. We're looking to move our Mickelson Middle School 1-to-1, which has currently been purchased, into a lease program very similar to the BHS 1-to-1 that we started probably about 6 or 7 years ago. What we're doing with that is we're ensuring that at Mickelson, we have uniformity with devices. Everybody will have the same device. Our BHS lease has been very, very good for us. It's been a very positive thing that we want to bring to the middle school with it. We have options that are 3-year leases. We have options that are 4-year leases. And we are prepared that we could go forward with either one of those leases that we can go with. We're just looking at lead times, and I got a lot of information on lead times with all this equipment. If we can make this decision quickly, there's a chance we can get these. There's a chance we can get these beginning of August, which still puts it tight to get it ready for the next school year. If we have to push this back to the middle of April, end of April, there's a chance we won't get these devices until September, October. And with our school year and with the needs that we have, that just would not work very well. So if you have any other questions about this, I can move some of the financial stuff over to Brian. But if you have any other questions for me about this, I can take those at this time.
Does the board have any question about what Jason has said thus far?
I have a question for
Melissa. Oh, go ahead, Roger.
No, go ahead, Melissa.
I just had a question. Are you seeing any increases to the price based on the kind of shortages that are happening? Is there going to be any cost differences between ordering now versus later? Just wondering if that shortage is going to raise the price up.
Yes, great question. I believe for what we're working with, it really hasn't quite yet. Those prices will be increasing in my opinion. But looking at the quote that we got, because this is a process that I've been working on for probably about a year, just kind of getting things organized with this, moving us to a lease. The price that's in front of you and the price that we're looking at for this lease is actually a little bit lower right now than what the price was when I got it approximately a month ago. When I got some information on what the prices could look at, it actually came down a little bit with where we're at with Lenovo. So as far as our price here, it hasn't seen that yet, but I see that happening as an uptick in the industry. I think there's no question that it will happen. So another reason why getting moving on this quickly is going to be positive for us.
Just as an observation that I've seen elsewhere, Jason and Melissa, that there is a lot of, shall we say, generously opportunism going on right now, and some of the numbers are going through the ceiling. So if Jason can keep a lid on things, I think that's yet another good plus for this proposal.
This is Wes. The 4-year versus the 3-year, just give a quick synopsis on that in terms of what that might mean in your planning and your cycling of your computers through the classes, various classes.
Yes, definitely. Really 3-year versus 4-year for the leases. What we've seen, we've done a 3-year lease at BHS. We keep these devices with the same student. So a a 3-year lease, or a 4-year lease, it's gonna still work the same way. You'll be issued your laptop from 6th to 7th grade, you'll keep your same one. With the 8th grade students that'll be graduating from Mickelson and going to the high school, we will rotate those devices around, and those devices will then go to the 6th grade students. The biggest difference, I guess, for us with 3 to 4 year leases is, just one extra year of wear and tear on the device, battery life on devices. In that 4th year, we will probably see those go down a little bit in year 4 as opposed to just having a 3-year lease. But with us keeping these devices at Mickelson and not actually sending them home like we do at the high school, that's going to alleviate some of those issues. There's not going to be near the wear and tear on these devices that our high school devices see, just with coming in and out of the buildings and going from home and away. I believe this lease is a step in the direction to actually sending them home with our middle school students at some point in time, but that'll be a decision that we'll make as a district at a later time. But for now, I really see a 4-year lease being a good possibility for these, especially since we're keeping them at the buildings in a one-to-one fashion, keeping them there.
Brian?
And then it doesn't disrupt the plan that the board approved?
No,
Consistent with that?
no, 3 or 4 years, either way, we could make it work.
I think that, Jason, the thing we approved last month, Jason said specifically 3 or 4, I think in the middle school piece, so he's within that, realm, and, it looks to me like what is going on is, the circumstances have just, caused an acceleration of executing what he put in the plan that we approved last month anyway. Maybe I had that wrong, Jason, but it
Nope.
just seems to me like that's the way it comes down.
Yes, Van, you're exactly right. This was the tech plan that was approved last month. This is right in the recommendations on the tech plan to move forward with moving the middle school to a one-to-one lease. And this is also going to not only be, this isn't going to be added money. We're not asking for, this is actually going to just be pulled out of my technology budget. So through Brian's capital outlay budget and the money that I have allotted to me, this amount yearly is just going to come out of my budget. So it's not an added expense. It's just the way that I'm going to use my budget is going to be through a lease as opposed to just purchasing them out.
So maybe you could just give us a little bit, and I realize we're jumping ahead of Brian, maybe, but you can go ahead and do it, Jason. Your budget in the plan that we approved was $150, right? 150?
No,
thousand?
no. My entire technology budget?
That's what am I missing there? What did I read wrong in your budget?
I'll let Brian.
Jason's budget this year is $700,000, and next year it's slated to be, if everything stays the way it is, it'll be about $714,000.
Yeah, I know those numbers, but I'm referring to the plan that we approved.
And that's the price for the lease?
I'm just trying to reconcile the difference between the 700 and 714, which of course I've seen, with, now I'm on your plan. I'm trying to find the page here. Page maybe, 13, 14. Yeah, page 15, you got 150 a year. For software.
Yes. So that's the out of our 700,000 that I have, about 150 of that is just for educational software that we utilize throughout the district. So when I look at the amount of my budget that I actually spend on hardware, without the software being a part of it, just that part is, approximately 550,000 once you take, that's why I put that 150,000 in there, just to kind of give an idea that we get 700,000, but 150 of it is taken away for software right away. So our actual hardware budget, which is what the one-to-one would come out of for the middle school, is about $550,000.
Okay, and what I'm trying to do, Wes, is leg this up to you on the capital outlay discussion we had 2 or 3 months ago. Is it? Does this all match up in your mind?
Yes, I'm looking at the numbers as well, and that, we're trying to maximize the capital outlay, and going to 4 years versus 3 does give us a little bit of a wiggle room. And next year, we may be at the same $700,000 level as we are this year, given what may be going on at the state budget level. But I can see my way through this. Probably need a little more discussion in terms of the number crunching detail, but on a macro level, I think we're good to go.
Okay. By the way, the lease that you submitted to the board, Jason, I don't know if it matters or not, but it's do you do all your leasing through the Brookings High School?
The only leasing we do currently with Lenovo is for the high school. Yep, our high school one-to-one is the only lease we do.
The contract lease address is 530 Elm Avenue. That's just a small.
We can definitely change that. Yep.
And Van, one of the things that was noted on the lease, there was no dollar amounts because they were still finalizing them. And we just got some final numbers. They were still working on it when I talked to them at noon. And we did get an email. And if you want, I can sure run through the difference between a 3-year and 4-year lease right now if you'd like me to.
Well, I guess I'd ask if anybody else in the board wants to see that number. I think what Wes said is it would sort of intuitively seem that a 4-year would be a little easier on a capital outlay budget, and I guess that's probably what we should do then.
And I know
The difference is about $30,000 a year, as I talked to Brian earlier, between $220,000 per year cost versus $193 versus 4. So that gives stretches the dollars a little bit each year, without sacrificing service.
Okay. So I'd like to ask the rest of the board if they have any comment about this discussion, or are we ready to vote?
I just have one technicality, Brian. It might not be a big thing, but when I made the motion, I didn't read the whole sentence. I ended with purchasing one-to-one computers from Mickelson Middle School. I would like to add on lease to make the motion legal.
And if you're interested in amending it as a friendly amendment, maybe you want to add, because we are recommending a 4-year lease as well.
Well, my comment on that is I'm going to leave that to, I agree with what Van just said in West, but I'm going to leave that to the administration to make a recommendation. If that's your recommendation, I support it.
All right, thank you.
I think we're ready for the question.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah,
Oh, no, wait a sec. You want to put it up there? I'm sorry.
You should be able to vote with your computers.
Yep.
You got the amendment?
Yep, I do. I just amended it to add lease.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you coming on, Wes?
well, I'm not being able to access the vote here. I'm not sure what error I'm making here. Join meeting. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Motion carries. Now, we have the business about the school board election. Is that what I'm kind of swimming kind of?
No,
unclear
That's right,
water here?
Van.
That's
Right,
You know,
Dan.
listen, I need somebody, I'm going to go on mute, and I've got to go find a power cord because I'm way down on my iPad. So if all of a sudden, I'll try to listen, but if something happens and I'm not around, that's the reason, okay?
Okay.
We'll have a discussion. We
To make a
need,
motion.
a motion and a second to amend the, if that's the right word, approval to change the board election.
I so move. I move that we consider moving the annual school board election to the fourth Tuesday in June.
I'll second that.
You want just a brief update on it?
No, any reason? Do we have any discussion about this?
Doesn't need to be, I sure can.
No, I don't think
All
we
right,
need to because I think everybody is a necessity, so.
Yeah, let's call the question. Carries. And now we need to go to the change orders, and that's where I'm going to go try to find a power cord here, Clint.
All right.
Well, no, wait a second. Wait a second. I suppose I need to. We need to have move approval first. Yeah. All right.
I move approval as presented regarding the change orders.
Second.
That's for just one of them or two of them. And what do you care, Brian?
Big Pack 3, change order number 8. Big Pack 2, change order number 12.
All right. That's your motion, right?
Correct.
Okay. Was there a second?
I seconded this, Melissa.
All right. Go ahead.
All right, I can briefly cover it, and the nice thing is Wes and Melissa were able to sit in, and Phil and Eric went over every single change order on this list in very good detail. And so if you want, I can go over them all, or if Wes or Melissa, you feel like there's something that sticks out that you want to cover, you sure can. I will quick cover Bid Pack 2 Change Order 12, because one of the questions was, why are we ordering new signage for the middle school? Why can't we just use our old signage? And one of the reasons, or the main reason is it was put in what's the word of it? It was put in a different type of construction. I can't think of the word now, but it was basically drive it. It was installed in drive it, and but to get it out, it would have been destroyed, and also it wouldn't work putting it on metal because it was meant for this drive it, is what I'll call it. So they could not use the same lettering, so we had to order new. And as a matter of fact, if you drive by now, the lettering's already up, because I had pre-approved it because I knew that they couldn't use the existing. And believe me, if they could have used the existing, we would have. So I covered that one very briefly. Is there any other change orders that any of the board members had? Or Wes or Melissa, did you want to cover any?
Just as a point of order, I in fact have already signed 12. Apparently, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. So I guess in a way you have to ratify our action, Brian.
And that one we did not send in because it wasn't officially board approved. So that one's still in limbo.
My opinion on the change order is pretty simple. I mean, we had our superintendent there, you were there, we had 2 school board members there, and I called you earlier and I visited with you just briefly about it, and you said everybody was in agreement with it, and so I think I support it because we had 4 of our people there representing the district.
And I concur with that.
All right. Are we moving on? Are we going to vote on both of them together or one at a time? What's the deal here, Brian?
They're both at the same time.
All right. I'll call the question.
I think I'm sorry, I must have gotten off page here. You're going to have to take my vote orally.
All right. Wes?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an aye, I think, yeah. Okay.
Aye, yes.
All right. Do we declare adjournment or do we move? I've forgotten.
There's a motion and a second.
All right. So we want to move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second it.
All,
I got it back on, so.
okay, well, thank you very much. Now I'm really low on power. Is there anything, we just close up our machines now, Clint and Brian?
Yep, everybody
Stay
can.
safe.
Yep, everybody can
Stay safe,
adjourn.
everybody.
And, yeah,
Well,
please be safe. And again, thank you for the timeliness in responding. We'll let you know if we need to have another one just to keep things moving forward. So again, enjoy your weekend, everybody.
All right, thank
Ditto.
you all very much.
Take care.
All right,
Thanks.
bye.
Everybody.